The notification from Seattle Children's Hospital appeared on Diana Foster's phone at 2:47 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, 72 hours after her divorce from Thomas became final. The message was brief and clinical. Lab results available for patient Lily Foster. Please contact Dr. Sarah Mitchell immediately. Diana's hands trembled as she pulled into the hospital parking garage. Her daughter Lily, 20 years old and living with spastic cerebral palsy, had been admitted 2 days earlier with severe abdominal pain and vomiting. The doctors suspected appendicitis, but the ultrasound told a different story. Dr. Mitchell waited in a small consultation room, her expression carefully neutral. Diana recognized that look from her years working as a social worker. It was the face doctors wore when they had to deliver news that would shatter someone's world. "Mrs. Foster, I need to discuss something sensitive with you," Dr. Mitchell began, sliding a folder across the table. "The imaging we performed revealed that Lily is approximately 18 weeks pregnant." The words landed like physical blows. Diana heard herself laughing, a harsh sound that didn't belong to her. "That's impossible. Lily can't walk independently. She requires assistance with all personal care. She's never even been on a date." "I understand this is shocking," Dr. Mitchell continued, "but the pregnancy is confirmed. Given Lily's cognitive disabilities and physical limitations, we're legally required to report this as suspected sexual assault to Child Protective Services and law enforcement." Diana's mind raced backward through the previous months. The divorce had been ugly, stretching over 14 months of court dates and custody negotiations. Thomas had fought her viciously over visitation rights with Lily, insisting on unsupervised weekend visits despite Diana's concerns. The judge had ruled in his favor, citing Thomas's role as Lily's stepfather since she was 4 years old. Those weekend visits, every other Friday through Sunday. 18 weeks meant the pregnancy began in late December, right after the temporary custody arrangement started. "Where is my daughter now?" Diana's voice came out flat, distant. "She's resting in room 412. We've assigned a victim advocate and a detective from the Special Assault Unit is on their way. Mrs. Foster, I know this is overwhelming, but we need to ask Lily some questions using her communication device." Diana stood abruptly. "I need to see her first." Lily lay in the hospital bed, her body curled in its characteristic asymmetric posture, her augmentative communication tablet resting beside her. When she saw her mother, her eyes widened with an expression Diana had seen many times over the past months, but had misinterpreted as general anxiety about the divorce. It was fear, pure, specific fear. "Baby, I'm here," Diana whispered, taking Lily's hand. "You're safe now." Lily's fingers moved weakly toward her tablet, but she was too exhausted to type. Diana helped position it, and slowly, painfully, words appeared on the screen. "Scared. Hurts. Help Mama." The advocate, a woman named Patricia Reyes, entered quietly. "Ms. Foster, when Lily is ready, we need to ask her about who might have had access to her. Given the timeline and her limited social circle, we need to consider everyone." Diana already knew. In her gut, she had known the moment Dr. Mitchell said 18 weeks. The weekend visits had started in November. Thomas had insisted on them, claiming Lily needed stability and routine with her stepfather despite the divorce. He'd presented himself as the devoted caregiver, even bringing medical records to court showing he'd managed Lily's medications and therapy appointments. The judge had been impressed by his dedication. Diana had been outvoted. "It was Thomas," Diana said, her voice hollow. "My ex-husband. He had her every other weekend, unsupervised, from November through February. The court gave him visitation rights." Patricia and Dr. Mitchell exchanged glances. "We'll need Detective Morrison to hear this directly," Patricia said gently. "But Ms. Foster, if you have any reason to believe evidence exists, any documentation or communication from those visits, now is the time to mention it." Diana's mind went to Thomas's home computer, the one he'd kept during the divorce settlement because it contained his work files as an IT consultant. He'd always been obsessive about that computer, password protecting everything, claiming client confidentiality. but Diana still had her key to his apartment. He'd forgotten to ask for it back in the chaos of the final divorce proceedings. And she knew his habits, his patterns, his arrogance. If Thomas had done this, if he'd hurt Lily in the way Diana now suspected, he would have been methodical about it. He documented everything, kept records of everything. It was how his mind worked. Detective James Morrison arrived 30 minutes later, a veteran investigator with gray threading through his dark hair and eyes that had seen too much human cruelty. He listened as Diana explained the timeline, the visitation schedule, her suspicions. "Ms. Foster, I need to be clear about something," Morrison said carefully. "If you're planning to access your ex-husband's property or computer without permission, that could compromise any evidence we find. It could even result in charges against you." Diana met his eyes steadily. "What if I still have legal access? What if I have a key and was never formally prohibited from entering?" Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "Even so, I'd advise you to let us handle this through proper channels. We can get a warrant." "How long will that take?" 48 to 72 hours, depending on the judge's schedule." Diana looked back at Lily, who had fallen into an exhausted sleep, her face still showing traces of pain and fear. 72 hours during which Thomas could discover the investigation and destroy evidence. 72 hours during which he could disappear. She'd already lost 3 days to bureaucracy and legal procedures. She wouldn't lose 3 more. "I understand, Detective," Diana said. "I'll wait for your warrant." But they both knew she was lying. Diana left the hospital at 9:15 p.m., telling Patricia she needed to get clothes and supplies for Lily's extended stay. The drive to Thomas's apartment in Bellevue took 23 minutes through Seattle's evening traffic, giving her too much time to think and not enough time to second-guess what she was about to do. The building was a modern complex with secure entry, but Diana still had her old key fob from when they'd lived there together before the divorce. She'd kept it attached to her keychain, meaning to return it, then forgetting in the avalanche of paperwork and court dates. Now she was grateful for her procrastination. Thomas's sedan wasn't in his assigned parking spot. Diana checked his work schedule on her phone, pulling up the shared calendar he'd never removed her from. He was on site at a client location in Tacoma until midnight, performing system maintenance. Predictable, methodical Thomas, who planned everything down to the minute. The apartment was exactly as she remembered. Sterile, organized, everything in its designated place. The living room showed no signs of Lily's visits, no wheelchair-accessible features, no adaptive equipment. Diana's stomach turned. Where had he kept Lily during those weekends? How had he managed her care needs while simultaneously abusing her? The home office door was closed but unlocked. Diana pulled on the latex gloves she'd grabbed from the hospital, her social worker instincts kicking in about preserving evidence. The computer sat on the desk, its screen dark, but the tower humming softly. Thomas never fully shut it down, claiming the boot-up time wasted productivity. She moved the mouse and the screen blazed to life, showing a login prompt. Diana tried his old password, the one he'd used for years. Lily Diana 2019. The year they'd become a family, invalid. She tried variations, his birthday, Lily's birthday, their anniversary. All failed. Her hands were shaking now, sweat dampening the latex gloves. She had maybe 2 hours before Thomas returned, and she was wasting time on password guessing. Then she remembered his backup drive, a small external hard drive he kept in his desk drawer for client file transfers. She'd teased him once about his paranoia, keeping physical backups of everything. "You can't trust the cloud," he'd said. "Physical copies are the only real security." The drawer opened easily. Inside, beneath folders of old tax documents and receipts, she found 3 external drives, each labeled with years. 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, 2024, 2025. Diana connected the most recent drive to the computer. It didn't require a password, opening immediately to show a dozen folders with cryptic alphanumeric names. She clicked the first one. Video files, hundreds of them, organized by date. Her hand hovered over the mouse, her entire body going cold. Part of her wanted to run, to let Detective Morrison handle this, to unsee what she was about to see. But Lily needed her to be strong. Lily needed evidence. Diana clicked the most recent file, dated February 18th, 3 days before Thomas's last visitation weekend before the divorce was finalized. The video opened in the default media player. The timestamp in the corner read 11:47 p.m. The location was immediately recognizable. The guest bedroom of this apartment, the one with the hospital bed Thomas had installed, claiming it was for Lily's comfort during visits. Diana watched for 11 seconds before her stomach revolted. She stumbled to the office trash can and vomited, her body purging the horror her mind couldn't process. When she could breathe again, she closed the video and opened the folder properties. 347 files spanning from November 2023 to February 2025. 15 months of documented abuse, methodically recorded and archived. Thomas hadn't just assaulted Lily, he'd created a collection, organized it, backed it up across multiple drives. This wasn't opportunistic, it was systematic, calculated, and utterly monstrous. Diana's phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Detective Morrison wants to know if you've left the hospital area. Please respond." She should call him now, tell him what she'd found, wait for the official warrant. But Diana knew how evidence worked, how defense attorneys could argue about chain of custody and illegal searches. She needed this to be ironclad. She photographed the folder structure, the file counts, and the external drive labels. Then she carefully disconnected the drive and put it back exactly as she'd found it. She took photos of the desk layout, the computer screen, the office arrangement. Everything documented, everything preserved. Her phone rang, Detective Morrison's number. Diana answered, keeping her voice steady. "Detective? Ms. Foster, where are you right now?" "I'm at my apartment gathering things for Lily." "Why?" "We got the warrant expedited. Judge signed it an hour ago. We're heading to Thomas Foster's residence now. I need you to stay away from there. Do you understand?" "I understand," Diana said, already moving toward the apartment door. "Miss Foster, I mean it. If you compromise this investigation, I'm at home, Detective. I'll wait for your call." She ended the call and locked Thomas's apartment behind her, her hands still trembling. The gloves went into a trash bin in the parking garage. Her key fob went back in her purse. 20 minutes later, safely back at the hospital, Diana sat beside Lily's bed and waited for her phone to ring. Detective Morrison's call came at 11:42 p.m. His voice was tight, controlled in the way professionals used when processing something disturbing. "Ms. Foster, we've executed the warrant. Thomas Foster is in custody. I need you to come to the precinct tomorrow morning at 9 to give a formal statement." Diana closed her eyes. "Did you find something?" A long pause. "We found enough. The prosecutor will be filing charges within 48 hours. Multiple counts." "How many?" Morrison hesitated. "I can't discuss specifics of an active investigation, but Ms. Foster, your daughter's testimony is going to be crucial. We need to arrange a forensic interview with a specialist trained in working with nonverbal communication." After the call ended, Diana sat in the darkened hospital room, watching Lily sleep. The ventilator by the bed hummed softly, monitors beeping in steady rhythm. Lily's face, even in sleep, carried a tension that Diana now understood had been there for months. The weekend visits, the way Lily would return home quieter, more withdrawn, the unexplained bruising Diana had attributed to transfers and physical therapy, the regression in her communication skills, which the therapist had blamed on stress from the divorce. All of it had been there, screaming the truth, and Diana had been too caught up in legal battles and survival mode to hear it. At 1:30 a.m., Patricia entered with coffee and a folder. "I thought you might still be awake. The hospital approved Lily's admission for comprehensive evaluation. We're bringing in Dr. Chen. She specializes in trauma response for patients with disabilities." "What happens now?" Diana asked. "Detective Morrison's team is processing evidence from Thomas's apartment. The prosecutor, Ellen Rodriguez, is one of the best in the sexual assault unit. She's already reviewing the case." Patricia sat down across from Diana. "This is going to get public. The media will pick it up, especially given the custody angle. A stepfather granted visitation rights who then assaulted his disabled stepdaughter. It's going to be everywhere. Diana hadn't thought that far ahead. Can we seal the records? Protect Lily's identity? We'll try, but once charges are filed, some information becomes public. You should prepare for that. The following morning, Detective Morrison met Diana at the precinct with a victim advocate and Ellen Rodriguez, a sharp-eyed prosecutor in her mid-40s with graying hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen the worst humanity had to offer. "Ms. Foster, I want to be direct with you," Rodriguez began. "The evidence we recovered from your ex-husband's apartment is substantial. 3 external hard drives containing 347 video files documenting sexual assault. The metadata confirms the files span 15 months, corresponding exactly with his court-ordered visitation schedule." Diana felt dizzy. 347. Every visit, multiple recordings per visit. Thomas Foster documented everything with timestamps and dates. He also kept a digital journal detailing each encounter, including notes about Lily's responses and his methods of control. Morrison added, "We've also recovered communications between Foster and others in online forums dedicated to exploitation of disabled individuals. He was trading files, sharing techniques, connecting with other predators." The room tilted. Diana gripped the edge of the table. "Others? He was sharing videos of my daughter? We're working with federal authorities to identify and locate everyone in his network," Morrison said. "But our primary focus is prosecuting Foster. With this evidence, we're charging him with 347 counts of first-degree rape of a vulnerable person, production and distribution of child sexual abuse material, and conspiracy." Rodriguez leaned forward. "Ms. Foster, this case is airtight from an evidence standpoint. Foster documented his own crimes in excruciating detail. But Lily's testimony will still be critical. Defense attorneys will try to argue she can't reliably communicate consent, or lack thereof. We need to prove otherwise. Lily can communicate," Diana said firmly. "She uses her tablet, eye-gaze technology, yes-no responses. She understands everything. Then we need her to tell us, in her own words, what happened. Dr. Amanda Walsh is flying in from Portland. She's an expert in augmentative communication and forensic interviewing. She'll work with Lily when she's medically stable." Thomas's arraignment was scheduled for Friday morning. Diana wasn't required to attend, but she went anyway, sitting in the back of the courtroom as he was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. When his eyes found her across the room, she saw something flicker there. Not remorse, calculation. He was still planning, still strategizing his defense. The charges were read aloud. 347 counts that took the clerk nearly 10 minutes to enumerate. Thomas stood impassively, his public defender beside him looking overwhelmed. Bail was set at $2 million. Thomas couldn't make it. He'd be held in King County Jail pending trial. As the deputies led him away, Thomas turned one last time. His lips moved, forming words Diana couldn't hear but could read. "You did this." Patricia touched Diana's arm. "Don't let him get in your head. This is on him, not you." But Diana couldn't shake the look in his eyes. Not guilt, not shame, blame. Dr. Amanda Walsh arrived at Seattle Children's Hospital on Monday morning, carrying specialized equipment and 2 decades of experience interviewing trauma survivors with communication disabilities. She spent the first hour simply observing Lily, studying her communication patterns, her eye movements, the way she responded to her mother's presence. "Lily has sophisticated receptive language," Dr. Walsh explained to Diana. "She understands everything being said to her. The challenge is expressive communication, but her tablet gives her a voice. We just need to give her time and safety to use it." The forensic interview took place over 3 sessions spanning 2 days. Patricia and Detective Morrison observed via video feed from an adjacent room, while Dr. Walsh worked with Lily one-on-one, building trust through simple questions before addressing the assault. Diana wasn't allowed in the room. a protocol designed to prevent coaching or influence. She paced the hallway outside, counting ceiling tiles, reading safety posters she'd already memorized. On the second day, Patricia emerged from the observation room with red-rimmed eyes. She told us everything, every detail she could articulate. Diana, your daughter is incredibly brave. What did she say? That's evidence I can't share yet, but Morrison has what he needs. Lily's statement corroborates the video evidence and fills in details about coercion and threats Thomas used to keep her silent. The medical team presented Diana with another devastating reality that afternoon. At 20 weeks gestation, Lily's pregnancy was approaching the legal limit for termination in Washington state. A decision needed to be made quickly. Dr. Mitchell arranged a consultation with a maternal fetal medicine specialist and a counselor who specialized in reproductive rights for disabled individuals. They gathered in Lily's room, speaking directly to her, not around her. "Lily, this is your choice," Shui, the counselor, a woman named Rebecca Stone, said gently. "Not your mother's, not the doctor's, not anyone else's. Yours. Do you understand?" Lily's fingers moved across her tablet. "Yes, my choice. You have three options. Continue the pregnancy and parent the baby with support. Continue the pregnancy and choose adoption. Or terminate the pregnancy. All three are valid choices. Take the time you need." Diana watched her daughter's face, seeing the concentration there. The effort to process information while managing physical pain and emotional trauma. After several minutes, Lily began typing. The synthesized voice read her words aloud. "Baby is mine, not his. Mine. Want to keep." Rebecca nodded. "You want to continue the pregnancy and keep the baby?" "Yes." "Do you understand that parenting will be challenging? That you'll need significant support?" Lily's response was immediate. "I know. I want baby, my family." Diana felt tears streaming down her face. In the midst of unspeakable trauma, Lily was claiming autonomy, making her first major life decision independently. The pregnancy that resulted from violence would become something else entirely. A choice, a reclamation of control. The story broke in the Seattle Times on Wednesday morning. The headline read, "Former stepfather charged with 300-plus counts of sexual assault against disabled stepdaughter." The article carefully avoided naming Lily but detailed Thomas's IT background, the custody arrangement, and the volume of evidence. By noon, the story had gone national. Cable news picked it up, framing it as a failure of the family court system. Legal analysts debated on air whether judges adequately screened for abuse risk in custody cases involving vulnerable dependents. Diana's phone exploded with messages from reporters requesting interviews, advocates offering support, and strangers expressing outrage. She turned it off and focused on Lily. Public reaction was swift and polarized. Online petitions demanded reform of custody laws. Disability rights organizations issued statements about the epidemic of sexual violence against people with disabilities. Victim support groups rallied outside the King County Courthouse. But there was also darker commentary. Anonymous internet users questioned Lily's credibility, her ability to consent or refuse consent, whether her communication could be trusted. Some suggested Diana had coached her daughter, or fabricated evidence out of divorce bitterness. Ellen Rodriguez warned Diana about the defense strategy. Thomas's attorney is going to argue that Lily's disability makes her an unreliable witness. They'll claim she can't distinguish reality from suggestion, that her communication device could be manipulated. It's disgusting, but it's their only play. Will it work? Not with 347 videos showing exactly what he did. But they'll try to create reasonable doubt anywhere they can. The trial will be brutal. Lily was discharged from the hospital in early April, moving into Diana's apartment in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. The space wasn't ideal, with narrow doorways and a bathroom that barely accommodated Lily's wheelchair, but it was home. It was safe. Diana hired a home health aide, installed grab bars and ramps, converted the dining room into an accessible bedroom. Her savings disappeared into modifications and medical equipment, but she didn't care. Lily was home. One evening in late April, as Diana helped Lily prepare for bed, Her daughter's fingers moved across the tablet with unusual urgency. "Mama, not your fault." Diana froze, the weight of those words hitting her like a physical force. "You didn't know," Lily continued typing. "He tricked us both. Not your fault. Love you." Diana collapsed onto the bed beside her daughter, sobbing in a way she hadn't allowed herself to since the nightmare began. Lily's hand found hers, holding tight with the limited strength she possessed. "I should have protected you," Diana whispered. Lily's response appeared on the screen. "You did. You found truth. You saved me. Strong, Mama." Thomas Foster's trial began on June 12th, in a King County courtroom packed with media, advocates, and citizens who'd followed the case since March. Judge Margaret Chen presided, her reputation for no-nonsense judicial proceedings preceding her. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. Ellen Rodriguez presented the external hard drives, the metadata analysis, the forensic reports confirming Thomas as the father of Lily's unborn child. Digital forensics experts testified about file creation dates, camera specifications, and the impossibility of fabrication. Thomas's defense attorney, Marcus Webb, attempted to discredit the digital evidence, suggesting files could be manipulated or doctored. But the prosecution's technical witnesses dismantled each argument with precise detail. The videos were authentic, unaltered, and damning. On day 4, Dr. Amanda Walsh took the stand to explain Lily's communication abilities. She demonstrated how the augmentative device worked, showed examples of Lily's independent communication, and testified about the forensic interview process. "Lily Foster possesses full cognitive capacity," Dr. Walsh stated firmly. "Her cerebral palsy affects motor control, not intelligence or comprehension. She understands complex concepts, expresses nuanced thoughts, and communicates reliably through her device." Webb tried to challenge this during cross-examination. But isn't it possible that someone could influence what she types? That her mother could guide her responses? "I observed Lily independently for hours," Dr. Walsh replied. "Her communication was spontaneous, detailed, and consistent. She corrected me multiple times when I misunderstood her meaning. That's not coached behavior. That's authentic expression." The most difficult testimony came on day 6, when excerpts from Lily's forensic interview were played for the jury. Her synthesized voice filled the courtroom, describing assaults in clinical detail, explaining how Thomas threatened that if she told anyone, Diana would abandon her, that no one would believe a girl who can't even talk right. Diana sat in the gallery, forcing herself to listen to every word. Lily had refused to attend the trial, but she'd insisted her testimony be presented in full. "People need to know," she'd typed, "not just for me, for others like me." Thomas showed no emotion throughout the proceedings, his face a careful mask. Only once did Diana see it crack when the prosecution played a video showing Lily trying to push him away, her limited motor control making her resistance tragically ineffective. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Not remorse, irritation at being caught. The defense's case lasted 2 days. Webb argued that the relationship had been consensual, that Lily had agency and made choices. The argument was so grotesque, so fundamentally misunderstanding of Lily's disability and the power dynamics involved, that several jurors visibly recoiled. Webb called a psychologist who'd never examined Lily to testify about the sexual development of people with disabilities. Ellen Rodriguez shredded the testimony on cross-examination, pointing out the expert's lack of familiarity with this specific case and his reliance on outdated research. Thomas didn't testify. His attorney advised against it, knowing the prosecution would eviscerate him on cross-examination. Closing arguments took place on June 23rd. Ellen Rodriguez spoke for 90 minutes, walking the jury through the evidence systematically. 347 videos, 15 months of documented abuse, a 20-week pregnancy resulting from rape. The defendant didn't just commit these crimes, he archived them, organized them, and shared them with other predators. This is not a man who made a mistake. This is a man who methodically exploited a vulnerable young woman in his care. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Judge Chen scheduled sentencing for August 3rd, giving time for victim impact statements and pre-sentence investigation. Thomas was remanded to custody immediately, his face finally showing emotion as deputies led him away. Rage. Diana left the courthouse through a side exit, avoiding the media circus. Patricia met her in the parking garage, embracing her tightly. "It's over," Patricia said. But Diana knew it wasn't. The legal battle might be finished, but Lily was now 28 weeks pregnant, approaching the final trimester. The trauma counseling would continue for years. The public attention wouldn't fade overnight. Still, there was relief in the verdict. Validation. Lily's truth had been heard and believed. That evening, Diana returned home to find Lily in her bedroom, her tablet propped on the adjustable desk Diana had installed. She was typing something, her face concentrated. "What are you working on?" Diana asked. Lily turned the tablet toward her mother. On the screen was a partially written statement titled, "Victim Impact." "Judge Chen said I could write something for sentencing." The tablet's voice explained. "I want to speak, want him to hear me." Diana read the first paragraph. "My name is Lily Foster. For 15 months, the man who promised to care for me hurt me instead. He thought my disability made me voiceless. He was wrong. It's powerful, baby." Lily's fingers moved again. "I'm not baby anymore. I'm going to be a mom." The sentencing hearing on August 3rd drew an even larger crowd than the trial. Victim advocates filled 3 rows, disability rights organizations sent representatives, and media outlets positioned cameras outside the courthouse steps. Judge Chen began by acknowledging the unprecedented nature of the case. "In 23 years on the bench, I have never encountered a defendant who so thoroughly documented his own depravity. Mr. Foster, you created an archive of suffering, a catalog of exploitation. You betrayed the trust of a family, violated a vulnerable young woman, and showed no remorse throughout these proceedings." Ellen Rodriguez presented the prosecution's sentencing recommendation: life imprisonment without possibility of parole on the most serious charges, with consecutive sentences on remaining counts totaling 475 years. Then it was Lily's turn. Diana wheeled her daughter to the front of the courtroom, positioning her tablet where Judge Chen and the court reporter could see the screen clearly. Lily had practiced her statement for weeks, refining each word with her speech therapist. Now, as her fingers moved across the device, the synthesized voice filled the courtroom with steady clarity. "My name is Lily Foster. I am 20 years old. I have cerebral palsy, which affects how my body moves, not how my mind works. For 15 months, Thomas Foster hurt me. He told me no one would believe me because I couldn't talk right. He said my mom would leave me if I told. He was wrong about everything. I can communicate. People listened. My mom fought for me. I am not broken. I am not helpless. I am a survivor. And in 2 months, I will be a mother. The baby growing inside me came from violence, but she belongs to me now. I choose to love her. I choose my future." Thomas Foster tried to take my voice. Instead, he gave me a reason to speak louder. "I want other people with disabilities to know. If someone hurts you, tell. Keep telling until someone listens. You deserve to be believed." I asked the court to sentence him so he can never hurt anyone again. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even court officers, trained to remain impassive, wiped at their faces. Judge Chen took a moment to compose herself before speaking. "Ms. Foster, your courage is extraordinary. Thank you for sharing your truth." She turned to Thomas, who sat motionless beside his attorney. "Mr. Foster, you exploited your position of trust to commit heinous crimes against a young woman who depended on you for care. You documented your crimes with chilling calculation. The sentence I impose reflects the gravity of your actions and ensures you will never victimize anyone again. You are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, plus 400 consecutive years on remaining counts." Thomas showed no reaction as deputies approached. As they led him away, he didn't look at Lily or Diana. He simply stared straight ahead, his face blank. Diana drove Lily home in silence, both of them processing the finality of it. Justice had been served, but it didn't erase what had happened. It didn't give back the 15 months of suffering. It simply drew a line, before and after. On October 19th at 3:47 a.m., Lily went into labor. The birth team at Seattle Children's Hospital included specialists familiar with managing deliveries for women with cerebral palsy. After 14 hours of labor and careful monitoring, they performed a cesarean section. At 5:52 p.m., a baby girl entered the world weighing 6 pounds 2 ounces. When the nurses placed her in Lily's arms, something remarkable happened. Lily's muscles, which typically fought against her control, steadied. She held her daughter with unexpected strength, gazing down at the tiny face with absolute wonder. "Name?" the nurse asked gently. Lily had decided weeks ago, practicing the word until she could say it clearly without her device. She looked at her mother, then at her baby, and spoke aloud. "Grace." Diana's tears came freely. "Grace Foster. It's perfect." They moved into a larger apartment in November, a ground-floor unit with widened doorways and a roll-in shower. Diana reduced her hours at work, and they hired additional support staff. Lily enrolled in a community college program for parents with disabilities, learning adaptive parenting techniques. Grace thrived. At 6 months, she smiled constantly, reaching for her mother's face with tiny hands. Lily learned to hold bottles with adaptive equipment, to soothe Grace's cries with songs played through her communication device, to parent in ways uniquely her own. One evening in April, as Diana rocked Grace to sleep, Lily typed a message and turned the tablet toward her mother. "We survived. We're strong. We're free." Diana looked at her daughter, then at the granddaughter sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Yes, we are." The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Therapy would continue. The trauma wouldn't disappear. But they had each other, they had Grace, and they had a future that Thomas Foster could no longer touch. Lily's voice, once silenced, had become powerful. Her story spread through disability advocacy networks, changing how professionals screened for abuse, how courts evaluated vulnerability, how society listened to voices that didn't sound like the majority. 3 generations of strength, a daughter who survived, a mother who fought, and a baby named Grace who represented the possibility that even from darkness, light could emerge. They were not defined by what had been done to them. They were defined by how they rose afterward, together, unbreakable.